sing. It's a good reason to sing. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. For the Lord will go forth from Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. We will walk in his footsteps, and he will sure foundation, a sure foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, that believeth shall live in peace. Nice. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will surely answer them. And even while they are all yet speaking, I will hear their prayer. La 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 and it shall come to pass that before they call, I will surely answer them. And even while they are all yet speaking, I will hear their prayer. La 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 Good. Just getting warmed up, huh? Fun. It was so cold up north. It was so cold I saw a tree chasing a dog. Don't let somebody explain that to you. It's later. I'm glad to be back, and thank you so much for all of your prayers. The Lord is present in this sanctuary. Let us praise the Lord. The Lord is present and his people are gathered here. Let us praise the Lord. Praise him, praise him. Let us praise the Lord. Come, let's praise him, praise him. Let us praise Yeshua. The Lord is present in the sanctuary. Let us sing to the Lord. The Lord is present and his people are gathered here. Let us sing to the Lord. Sing to him, sing to him. Let us sing to the Lord. Come, let's sing to him, sing to him. Let us sing to Yeshua. The Lord is present in his sanctuary. Let us love the Lord. The Lord is present and his people are gathered here. Let us love the Lord. Love him, love him. Let us love the Lord. Come, let's love him, love him. Let us love Yeshua. The Lord is present in his sanctuary. Let us worship the Lord. The Lord is present and his people are gathered here. Let us worship the Lord. Worship him, worship him. Let us worship the Lord. Come, let's worship him, worship him. Let us worship Yeshua. We only get one more? Oh, yeah, I guess we gotta stop somewhere to start services pretty soon. But that's great, you guys were singing really from your hearts, and that's wonderful. Let's really think about the words to this and beyond. Praise awaits you, Zion, O God.
So I'm going, it's going to be 47 degrees last night. He's like, that's nothing.
47 is a heat wave.
I was pretty impressed. All right, we have, as per usual, many interesting pieces of paper to share with you. Keep an eye out, and if you see that someone that you know or have talked to or haven't talked to is missing, haven't seen them for a while, go ahead and feel free to give them a call. Let them know that you're thinking about them, that you noticed that they were not here. Hebrew classes. Rabbi Patrice is thinking of getting some Hebrew classes together, and if you are interested, you can either leave a note in the blue boxes or email orkadashoffice@aol.com. Some people still have AOL accounts. Remember when you had an AOL account?
It's free now.
Remember when you used to pay for AOL? Okay, well, next weekend is the big retreat, and I think it's going to be a little warmer than 47 degrees, but we will enjoy being outside. So when we leave, we have to leave them a check for the total amount that we owe them, and there's a note here about, well, two things. Let me finish that thought first. So if you have not yet made a contribution to cover the cost of your family attending, you may be like me and you might be going, how much was that? What do I need to do? So you can see Matt or I, and we will help you figure out what that needs to be to get that taken care of. And you could leave it tonight or next Friday, or if you need to, as you drive away from the retreat. But either way, we have to pay them. You know, speaking of money, I don't know, 20 years ago when we did the retreat, it was really a giant crisis because we had to make everybody pay in advance because we had like no cushion between you're gonna pay us and you did pay us and we have to pay them. And that's not quite the case. That's not to say you don't have to pay. But it just occurred to me that we are in a little bit different position. And so I wanted to let you know that remember that Giving Tuesday thing back on the with the Facebook thing? So that raised a little over $21,000. And they sent us a check for cash money. And so that is a wonderful blessing. And with that, we have, by the way, the air conditioning repairs are underway or scheduled, and so that's all happening. So by the time we need them again, the air conditioner is going to be all set. And the leak in the roof that was leaking for a long time, it's a patch, but it's repaired. And so, life goes on. And God takes care of us. And even when it seems like it's a dire situation, we put our faith in Him, and we survive. And so that's a good thing, a really good thing. So if you're wondering what to bring on the retreat, there's a note here. Probably everyone wants a flashlight. There's some snacks. You're not going to believe the quantity of snacks that show up at this thing. And we eat those after we eat these gigantic meals, then we go ask for more snacks. So that's eating is what we do. Okay, Havdalah and game night is the 23rd. We're not going to do it in January, the 23rd of February, so that's out into February, and keep an eye. We actually have a note with the instructions on closing the door. So I would like you to find this piece of paper right here. This is important. This gold piece of paper. And take a look at that. And it explains that we do have a repairman coming out to get the doors working properly. But when you exit, please push the handle very firmly when exiting. And then once you get outside, pull the door to make sure it's locked behind you. And then if it is, drive away and have a lovely evening. And if it's not, try again. Push the handle and close the door and check it, because we have come a few times and found that it is not all the way closed, and that's not in our best interest from a safety standpoint, so that's good. We have a work day scheduled on February 17th, that's a Sunday, and as usual, we've got lots of good things to get done around here, and our grill master, Don, will be on it, and so not only that, as per usual, we will eat well. All right. Let's see. These are the additional notes I remembered to say. We have a thank you card from the Kimberly Home, and the Kimberly Home is the group that introduced us to the family that we've provided gifts for over the holidays. Words cannot express our deep appreciation for all your wonderful gifts to our client for Christmas. God bless you all. She loved them, Kimberly Home staff. So thank you to all who participated in that. All right. Thank you for being here. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And as we begin our service, as he waits the microphone to come up. As we begin our service together this evening, join us on pages 14 and 25. As we rise, face the door, and literally welcome Shabbat, because of the great privilege it is, to have this particular time together with the God of the universe who welcomes us into his presence each Shabbat. And so we welcome Shabbat as if she were a queen, because in a way she is. And Shabbat is also then the anticipation of the ultimate Shabbat to come in the Messianic age. And you see that reflected too in the verses as we respond as Jacob reads, pages 14 to 25.
Dodi likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela. Dodi likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'diburecha, Ishmi'anu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, Leshem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi, Lecha dodi likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lekrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki hi mikor habracha. Merosh mikadem nasucha, sof maaseh hamachshava tchila. Lecha dodi, Lecha dodi likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Kala, Ane Shabbat Nekavela, Hitorari, Kive Urech Kumi Ori, Uri, Shia Deberi, Kivod Adonai Alayich Nigla, Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, Ane Shabbat Nekavela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Ane Shabbat Nekavela. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Observe and remember, in a single statement, the unique God caused us to hear his command. He alone is Lord, and his name is unique to his fame and splendor and praise. Together, come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Let's go to meet the Sabbath, for she is the source of blessing from the beginning, anointed from ancient days, though made last, conceived first. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Wake up, your light is come. Arise, shine, awake, awake. Sing a grand song. The glory of God is revealed to you. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath.
You may be seated. Wake up, your light has come. That's the reality we all get to experience as we welcome this particular Shabbat, and as in fact we light the lights for Shabbat and anticipate the ultimate light that will spread over the entire earth in the Messianic age.
Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto, v'tzivanu al pi ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, our God, King of our universe, who's given us the command to light the candles of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu lihayot or el goyim v'natan lanu Yeshua Meshikenu ha'or la'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations, and gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Well,
We sang Arise, Shine, Your Light Has Come, picking up on that same theme and understanding Yeshua as the light of the world. We're now ready to respond with our Tehillah Habrit Kadashah portion at the bottom of pages 136 and 137, as we remind ourselves in the words of our daily prayers, as they've echoed down through the ages in synagogues around the world. Picking up on those themes, he has come and has redeemed his people, having raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. That part actually reads, Baruch Adonai Elohei Yisrael, ki pakad et amo, v'yishlach lo kadut, v'yorem lanu keret Yeshua, v'veit David avdo. And so we respond together there. Praise be to the Lord,
the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophets of long ago. Salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days.
He is the one who now sits in the place of ultimate authority in the heavenly realms, as envisioned by the sages, the great rabbis of old. And so we respond with that in mind, and in a sense enter that scene as we respond on pages 40 to 41.
Elohim asher diber mikadem pe'amim rabot uvidrakim rabot el ha'avot be'yad ha'nevi'im diber aleinu be'acharit hayamim ha'eleh be'yad ha'bein asher sam le'o reish kol u'v'yadon gasa et ha'olamim u'zohar kevodo B'Tselem atzmuto v'nosei kol b'dvaro rav ha'gvura ulecha ha'she'asa tihur chazahim yashav limi Hadullah. In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority beside the majesty of heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
We now rise for the Amida portion this evening, found on pages 60 to 63. We face Jerusalem, the direction of the ark, and we utilize the words that are there as we ask God to direct our worship. Technically, the phrase is circumcise our hearts to be better prepared to worship him and respond to him. And then as we anticipate what we've been anticipating all the way through, to get to see the lengthening of the light of the Messiah. First paragraph done quietly, second paragraph done responsively. But make these words that come directly from your heart, sister, to our wonderful God. Pages 60 to 63. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagabor, V'Hanora, El Elyon, Knei Shemayim, V'Aretz. Blessed are you, O Lord our God. You're the God of our ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. You are the great, the mighty, the revered God. You are the Most High God. You are the Master of heaven and of earth.
Magid avot bidvaro bechaye metim b'ma'amaro ha'el hakadosh ha'in kamohu hameniach le'amo bayom Shabbat kadosho כי בעם רצה להניח להם, לפניו לעבוד בעירה באף אחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום. תמיד מעין הברכות אל ההודעות אדון השלום מקדש השבת וברך שביעי ומניח בי קדושה לימד ושני גודק זכר למעשה בראשית זכר למעשה בראשית. He, with his word, was a shield to our forefathers, and by his voice will raise the dead. The holy God, like whom there is none, who gives rest to his people on his holy Sabbath day, because he delights in them to grant them rest. Before his presence we will serve with fear and awe. Daily and constantly we will thank him with the appropriate praises. He is the God to whom thanksgiving is due, the Lord of peace, who hallows the Sabbath and blesses the seventh day, and in holiness gives rest to a people filled with delights in remembrance of the creation.
Our God and God of our ancestors, accept our rest. We ask that you hallow us by your commandments, grant our portion in your Torah, satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, purify our hearts to serve you truthfully. And in your love and favor, O Lord our God, let us inherit your holy Sabbath. And may Israel, who sanctify your name, rest thereon. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Blessed are you, O Lord, you're the one who makes Shabbat special. You may be seated. Because of all that he's done for us and all that he does for us, we respond to him in gratitude. We reflect back to him our praises for who he is and what he does. Tonight, using Half Kaddish, pages 4 to 7.
יתקדם ויתקדש מרבה ועמד יפרקי חוצי וימליך מלכותי וחיי כל וביום כל וחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה לבורא לעולם ולעוד מאוד והיה יתברך ויסתבח ויתפאר ויתרום בם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה לעם יוגרן בעלמה, ואמרו Amen. Let his name be glorified and sanctified throughout the universe which he created according to his purpose. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom in your lifetime, in your days, and in the lifetime of all the house of Israel, speedily, soon, and let all say, Amen. Let his great name be praised forever and ever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, magnified and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he, although he is far greater than all blessings, hymns, praises, and songs which are offered in the world. And all say,
Amen.
Amen.
Because he is greater than all that, as we have reflected on, our response now continues along that line. Mikamoka. As we praise him, we do say, who is like you, quite like you, O Lord, among the gods. The text begins, and in a moment you get a chance to respond. So praise our exalted God. We continue to do that. Blessed is he who is to be blessed. In our past, Moses and the people of Israel sang a song to you with great joy. As they all said in the past, we now say in the present, Who is like you, O Lord among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders?
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי.
And now we answer the question that we raised as we turn to pages 88 and 89 for Ein Kamoka. Truly, there's none like you, O Lord, among the gods.
אין כמוך באלים אדוני, אין כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי, אוסף אלי. There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai malach le'olam va'ed. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign through eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
And so his people now respond not only to what he extends to us, but that we anticipate that we will follow him wholeheartedly because he is the one we intend to rule over us. The Shema is that response. It's pages 34 to 39. Please rise. We face Jerusalem yet again. And each of us as individuals and the whole of us as a community now respond on those pages.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'kol levacha u'kol nafshecha u'kol me'odecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzvavcha hayom ha'levavecha, ושננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ולכתך בדרך, ושכבך ובקומך, ושבתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates.
The reality we just affirmed, God should be king over all of our lives, is one we anticipate for the entire world as we turn to pages 88 and 89 for Vaya Ibn Sela. Because it looks forward to the time when from Zion will go forth the Torah and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. And all the nations of the world will respond to him as we do now.
ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people Israel.
And his people, both Israel and those who have connected themselves to us, now respond in gratitude on page 133.
The ark now unveils its treasure.
To our eyes and minds and hearts.
Inside the scroll of Torah stands.
It stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them, live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
Mi shebarach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless John. May he bless Matt. May he bless Jenny. May he bless Alex. And may he bless Catalina, who have come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families, and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is blessed.
Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, bo el paro, ki ani ikbadeti et libo ve'et lev avodav, leman shiti ototai ele bakirabo, uleman tesaper be'oznei binecha uven binecha et asher yitalalti b'Mitzrayim ve'ototai asher samti bam v'yetem ki ani Adonai. Vayavo Moshe v'Aharon el Paro, vayomaru elav, כה אמר Adonai Elohei ha'ivrim, עד מתי מאיימת ליהנות מפניי, שלח עמי ויעבדוני. You may be seated. And Adonai said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I may perform these signs of mine in his presence, and so that you will tell in the ears of your children and your children's children how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians, and how I performed my signs among them, and you will know that I am Adonai." And Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they said to him, "Thus says Adonai, the God of the Hebrews, how much longer will you refuse to be humble in my presence? Let my people go so that they may serve me." So, from year to year, we read these parashiot. Each year we read the same ones over and over. And it's interesting to me each year how, based on the season of our life and the things that we are going through, the situations that we find ourselves in, how we are able to glean different lessons out of each parsha. And so tonight I just wanted to share a little bit of the reflections I had as it relates to some of the things that I'm going through, and hopefully it'll help you, and if not now, at least in the future, get through some things. But this week, it's the last 3 of the plagues on Egypt, of course, the 10th and final one being the one that finally broke the Pharaoh. And so it got me thinking about the line that I read, and how his heart had to be hardened in order for him to get through the lesson. And I thought, I hope it never comes to a time where God has to harden my heart to teach me a lesson, to get through something. And I thought, well, what would prevent that? What can I do to prevent that from happening? Because that's what's important. We want to prevent that. And so I thought, this right here, this is part of what helps. This is part of it. This coming together, worshiping together the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, praying together as a family, as an extended family, being there for one another, encouraging one another, and just being part of the community and an extended family. Also, what we're doing right here, reading from the scripture, reading from God's words and letting it sink into our lives, sink into our bodies, all of it, into our blood, into everything we do, so that everything we do and say and feel, the scriptures just come right out from within us. And it's important that we allow ourselves, and we ask and we pray for the wisdom to be able to get through each parashah, because they're all not quite as easily read as you might think. And I'm not talking about Leviticus. We haven't even gotten there yet. So my favorite book, yes. And I was tempted to go there with here, but no, I won't. Anyway, I lost my train of thought, but anyway, that's what I gleaned from tonight's lessons. And it also reminded me of, that was the other thing I wanted to mention, was there's, in Rav Shaul's letter to the Romans, and I think it's chapter 11, but I can't remember exactly, so don't quote me, but I'm not going to quote anyway, I'm going to paraphrase. He says something like, it's, arrogance is out, and arrogance is out, and thankfulness is in. I mean, in other words, if we're arrogant, we're like Pharaoh, and if we continue in that arrogance, we're not putting God first. Something else comes before God, and so we got to get the arrogance out. And we have to be thankful for every situation that we have. We have to be thankful for the good times and the bad times, because it's the bad times that builds our character. And so I thought that was important too, because it's those situations that help build our character more than the good times, even though we should be thankful for the good as well, of course. So anyway, I hope that helps you maybe in the future. It sure has helped me this week. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Reading Exodus 11:3. Adonai said to Moses, I'm going to bring still one more plague on Pharaoh and Egypt. And after that, he will let you leave here. When he does let you go, he will throw you out completely. Now tell the people that every man is to ask his neighbor and every woman her neighbor for gold and silver jewelry. Adonai made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people. Moreover, Moses was regarded by the Pharaoh's servants and the people as a very great man in the land of Egypt.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
The text just read reminded us that Moses was regarded as a very great man in Egypt. The reason being is they eventually came to realize that he spoke the very words of God. And it's those words that Moses delivered to us as they come directly from the hand of God, and we recognize that as we now stand. Yes, we now stand. Thank you. I thought that's what I said, wasn't it? As our ancestors did when they acknowledged that these words come directly from God, so we do yet again. Pages 98 and 99, Zot HaTorah. If you need a transliteration, that's page 95. And if you need the transliteration, then you also need to take a Hebrew class.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's commands by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated.
This is from Exodus chapter 6, verses 2 through 8. No, it is from Justice. God spoke to Moshe. He said to him, I am Adonai. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, although I did not make myself known to them by my name, Yud-He-Vav-He, Adonai. Also with them I established my covenant to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they wandered about and lived as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the people of Israel, whom the Egyptians are keeping in slavery, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore, say to the people of Israel, I am Adonai. I will free you from the forced labor of the Egyptians, rescue you from their oppression, and redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am Adonai, your God, who freed you from the forced labor of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you as your inheritance. I am Adonai.
Words that come from God should transform lives, and that in fact is our response, our request, as we join in Etz Chaim, a tree of life, allowing these words and the others to sink deep into our lives. We say, renew our days as of old. Pages 96 and 97.
Etz Chaim ilam machazikim ba betochei hameushar derachei darchei Noam vechol nativotei Shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha V'nashuva Chadesh Yavinu Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha V'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem. A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
Having responded thus far, we're now better prepared once again to stand in his presence as his priests, as the priests of old did. And we extend our gratitude and acknowledge our commitment. Pages 98 and 99 is that acknowledgement. Uvnucho Yomar.
Uvnucho Yomar, Shuva Adonai Rivorot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
As we greet one another, and in a sense congratulate those who've gotten a chance to read, please greet one another there, and feel free to congratulate one another for being here.
It's good to see you.
How are you? All right, doing good.
Yeah, you're here.
Made it in time.
Yeah, there you go.
Flashing on dawn.
Jacob. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Good to see you. Good
Oh, where is she? Oh, good. Is she okay?
Yeah, she just was working and
Okay,
like
okay, all right.
Shabbat shalom.
See what you started?
Yeah. What is the phrase? Don't let the animals out of the barn? Or don't try to herd cats? It's one of those things. Okay. Looks like Shabbat school has been excused. That's fine. The Parsha from last week and our text for tonight, as you heard it read, is a most interesting and intriguing text. And yet, given its frequent misinterpretation and misunderstanding in both Jewish and Christian circles, it's quite a confusing text. It begins, Va'era. Now, the way in which that really begins with the Va, it's telling us that there's something, it's continuing on. It's more to come. It's more of the same, which raises the question, then more of what? Well, we continue reading. El Avraham, El Yitzhak, El Yaakov, El Shaddai. What is it more of? Names. More names. And then 2 weeks ago, we read, Ve'elem Shemot B'nei Yisrael, Haba'im Mitzrayim et Yaakov. And these are the names of the people of Israel who left Egypt with Jacob. And it continues, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, Uvinyamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. And I don't need to translate those for you because those are all names. And then a dozen verses later, along come, as Matt reminded us last week, Shifra, and Pua. 2 more names. And if that weren't enough, in tonight's text we go on to read, and I quote, the sons of Reuben were Hanuch and Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon were Yemuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yakin, Zohar, and Shaul. And then these were the names of the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohat, and Ari. The sons of Kohat were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uziel. Amram married Jochebed, who bore him Aaron and Moses. The sons of Izhar were Korach, Nepheg, Zikri. A veritable overload of names. But of course, that's the title of the book too. The book that we began reading 2 weeks ago, Shemot, is known in English as Exodus, a name that highlights one of the key dramatic episodes of the book. But its Hebrew name, as I just suggested, Shemot, means names. Now, the names of the 5 books of the Torah and the parashiot, the weekly portions within them, are generally drawn from the first relatively distinct word or phrase found in the book or the portion, the parsha. And so they don't always correlate with the most significant narrative elements of the text from week to week or from book to book. And yet, the seemingly coincidental name of a book or parsha can also serve to focus our attention, and that's the case with the book of Shemot. The book begins with the names of Jacob's family members who left Canaan for Egypt, which, after all, is a minor element of the story when compared to the plagues, the Exodus, the revelation at Sinai, and the building of the Mishkan or the tabernacle. But the title, Names, just begs us to notice when the theme of names does arise and inclines us to pay attention to any potential significance that we may have skipped over while focusing on the high points of the drama. And in fact, last week's portion, why did you talk about last week's portion, Matt? Because last week when the portion was read was a special time in our calendar. It was the first Shabbat of the second new year. So I had to say something appropriate for that. So now I gotta go back in time to pick up the parsha. Is that fair enough? Is that excuse enough? Yeah. Well, anyhow, we'll continue. All right. Last week's portion, Va'era, opens, before moving on to the dramatic stories of the plagues in the Exodus, it opens with a brief divine monologue, ready for this, on the very subject of names. So, what can we learn from God taking the time to make sure all these names were recorded? Remember, God, and therefore the Torah, is not one to mince words. So, we should probably pay careful attention. And just to make sure you are paying careful attention, I'm going to give you a very short quiz. And by you, I mean those of you who were not in the class that I taught at the yeshiva last semester, or who've been in several of those because we've shared this quiz in those classes. You are not allowed to answer. The rest of you, it's a quiz for you. And it will tell you whether you actually do pay careful attention when you read or listen. All right, ready? Question, how do you put a giraffe in the refrigerator?
A piece at a time.
Nice answers. Correct answer. Open the refrigerator door, put the giraffe in, and close the door. Right, now, so, given that, how do you put an elephant into the refrigerator? Yeah, most people say the same way. No. You open the refrigerator, take the giraffe out. Uh-huh. And then you put in the elephant and you close the door. Okay, well, enough about refrigerators. Let me move on to another question. The Lion King, favorite character, is hosting an animal conference. All the animals attend except one. Which animal does not attend? You were in the class, you can't answer.
The lion.
And you did answer.
The lion.
No.
Oh.
The elephant. The elephant is still in the refrigerator. You put him in. Okay. If you didn't get those first 3 correctly, you still have one more chance to show you are truly paying attention. All right. Now, as you find in many places around Florida, there's a river you must cross. But it is used by alligators, big ones, and you don't have a boat. How do you manage to cross it? You jump into the river and you swim across. Haven't you been listening? All the alligators are attending the animal conference with the lion. Now, all of this is to remind us we are to pay careful attention. We're, in fact, to carefully observe the text and the context of what we read. So let's pay attention to the names so prevalent in our text for tonight. Now, in preparation for that, let me say this. We may not know much about the parents of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, but I'm going to suggest, based on something that I learned from another rabbi, we should at least be able to derive volumes about the grandparents of these three extraordinary people. In fact, just imagine the circumcision ceremony which was made for Moses' father and the Simchat Bat, the rejoicing at the naming of the daughter, for Moses' mother. In their context, these were rituals which must have occurred in fearful secrecy during a period of slavery and persecution for our people. It's almost as if the history of the children of Israel seems to be ending almost before it began. Nevertheless, one set of parents chose to name their son Amram, exalted nation, and the other set of parents chose to name their daughter Yocheved, glory to God. Which reminds us a bit of a little of what Jenny shared and what we reflected on last week. In all circumstances, all kinds of circumstances, what are we supposed to do? Praise God. Glory to God. Thank God. All right. Back to our story. These grandparents who gave these people these names had apparently been nourished on that great covenant that God made, or actually reconfirmed, with Abraham. Genesis 15, often called the covenant between the pieces. In other words, they were nourished on the promise, as the text says there, of an offspring or a nation who will be who will be strangers in a land not theirs, who will be enslaved and oppressed, but in the end will go free with great wealth. That was the promise. Remember what was read as part of our parsha for this week? God moved in such a way on Egypt that he made sure that his people left with what? Great wealth to return to the land of their ancestors. Exodus 11. And these grandparents whom we are talking about apparently inspired their grandchildren with faith in God, even in the darkest of times, because they knew that eventually his great light would shine on all of humanity. Yes, we may not know much about Moses' parents. However, by the names they bestowed on their children, we do know volumes about Moses' grandparents. And we should also know something about the God in whom they had such faith. A God who, as Yeshua said in that Hanukkah sermon, like a shepherd who knows his sheep, he knows each of them, each of us by name. Whereas he himself said in Matthew chapter 10, he's got the very hairs on our heads numbered. And since I joked not too long ago about the number of hairs on my head, I won't do that tonight. But we should be saying, wow, what a God. But there's more about him in our parsha. And so we read the one from last week. God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, the one more than sufficient for all of our needs. But I did not make myself known to them by my name Adonai. Now, the divine name that's used here is actually, as it was read for you in your hearing, what is often called the Tetragrammaton, the 4 letters, Hebrew letters, Yod He Vav He, which were uttered only once a year by the high priest in temple times on Yom Kippur. And so its pronunciation has been lost. So now we traditionally read from the text Adonai when we see that word. Roughly translated, my Lord, a very personal response. However, these opening lines from last week's parsha, which I just reread to you, actually raise a few problems. Most notably, this new name of God that's revealed to Moses is, in fact, not new at all. You see, the name Adonai appears numerous times in the book of Genesis in connection with the patriarchs and the matriarchs, who supposedly only knew God by the name El Shaddai. There are even explicit revelations of this name to Abraham at that covenant between the parts, Genesis 15, and to Jacob in his dream of the angelic ladder. So, why does God speak of this as a new revelation of this particular divine name? And I'm glad you asked. Let me read the following from the NIV Study Bible. Their note here. God Almighty, by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. This does not necessarily mean that the patriarchs and the matriarchs were ignorant of the name, the Lord. But it indicates that they did not understand its full implications as the name of the one who would redeem his people. That fact could be comprehended only by those Israelites who were to experience the Exodus and by their descendants. I'm not going to make myself known. This experiential sense of the verb to know is intended also in its repeated use throughout the account of the plagues. Know means to experience. So let me share this brief observation with you. It's not only the rabbis who get things right, or for that matter, wrong, from time to time. A midrash comments on the meaning of God's various names in the historical context of divine-human relationships. In reflecting on the name by which God introduced, or on reflecting on the phrase by which God introduced himself to Moses in Exodus chapter 3, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, the name by which God identifies himself in that first encounter with Moses. As it reflects on it, when Moses asks, the context is, what he should say when the Israelites inquire as to the name of the God who sent him to free them, the Midrash says this: you wish to know my name? Listen carefully. I am called after my deeds. Sometimes I'm called El Shaddai, Tsevaot, Lord of all hosts, Elohim, Adonai. I am called Adonai, and remember this is a reflection on that special name. I am called Adonai, as it is written. Adonai, Adonai, compassionate and gracious God. That's Exodus 34 being quoted. Thus, the Midrash concludes, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, usually translated, I am who I am. Thus, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, I am called after my deeds. In other words, based on what I've done. It's like the text from last week, Exodus 7. With mighty acts of judgment, verse 4, I will bring out my people, the Israelites, and the Egyptians will know, same use of the term just reflected on, they will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. So, this phrase, I am that I am, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, is not a phrase that relates to God's existence. That would be a redundant reality, not only for Moses, but it would be an inappropriate message for people in slavery. If you're in slavery, you do not need a lesson in philosophy. I am who I am. It is, in fact, a statement that has to do with God's presence. I will be with them in and through everything, is how it's to be understood. Another Midrash says, reflecting on this, there is no place, including Egypt, without the Shekinah, without the presence of God. A Jewish philosopher by the name of Martin Buber put it this way: Ich bin hier, ich bin da, as he translates this. I am here, I am there with you. Now that's in keeping with God as a God who acts and is present in history, as the Bible repeatedly points out, and the Exodus indicates or demonstrates. And it goes along with the phrase that appears in these verses, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. because that too is not something that stresses existence, but rather experience. And it points out that God was present in their history and involved in real relationships with them. That means that he was and is and always will be a hands-on God. What is his name? Was the question that Moses said that people would ask. In effect, in this context, it means what has he done, or what will he do to demonstrate his power? And Exodus 3, that phrase that we've been talking about, is his answer to that question. Therefore, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, often translated I am that I am, this is therefore not a good translation, indicates his active manifestation and not his existence. It indicates that he is the God of faithfulness and loving kindness, who will in fact fulfill his promises, who will not only go with them, but he will do for them. Oh, by the way, just a point of grammar in classical Hebrew. Classical Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, doesn't really have a functioning verb to be. In order, wake up, wake up, wake up. Verb to be, I am, was, will be. All right. Hebrew, classical Hebrew doesn't really have a verb that functions like this. And yet it's translated this way. So even that translation is problematic. And then if we look at the context, Exodus chapter 3, verse 12, the phrase occurs, or the name of God occurs in chapter 3, verse 14. And it says, I will be with you in Exodus 3:12 in most translations. As it turns out, that's the same grammatical construction as in verse 14, 2 verses later. All right? It's identical in the Hebrew. So if we translate verse 12 as I will be with you, then we ought to translate this name of God the same way. I will be with or go with you. So the pillar of fire and the experience in the desert and the tabernacle and the presence of the glory of God on top of that are a graphic fulfillment of just this reality that our ancestors experienced in the wilderness. In a few weeks, we'll conclude this book of Shemot names, and we'll conclude it this way. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord filled it. Closing paragraph of Exodus 40. And Moses was not able to enter because the cloud was standing there. In other words, God was actively present there. Whenever the cloud lifted and moved, the people of Israel journeyed onward, following it or following him. But if the cloud stayed, they stayed until it moved. The cloud rested on the tabernacle during the daytime, and at night there was a fire in the cloud so that all the people of Israel could see it. So they could actually see that God is actually present among them. And this continued throughout all their journeys, the text concludes as the book ends. And then in the book of Numbers, we have those wonderful texts that we use as part of our service on a weekly basis, and they're used in synagogues around the world in the same way. And the text says in Numbers 10, they traveled for 3 days after leaving Mount Sinai with the ark at the front of the column to choose a place for them to stop. As the ark was carried forward, Moses cried out, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, let them flee from before you. And when the ark was set down, they all said, Return, O Lord, to the millions of Israel. That was the reality that they experienced, a God who went with them, who walked with them, and they walked hand in hand with him. And if that wasn't sufficient, Leviticus 26, 11, and 12 contains the promise of God where he says, I will walk among you in your camps. Exodus 3 is a parallel to Exodus 6, our text for tonight. And the very name that's used there in Hebrew is connected to the verb form that's found in Exodus chapter 3. And here's how God describes himself in our text, if you remember the text. If not, it's still what is found in that text. God says, I will establish or confirm my covenant. He says, I've heard your groanings. He says, I will bring you out. I will take you to me for a people. I will be your God. I will bring you into the land. These are the phrases that are connected with this name, the unpronounced name of God. And notice that they are all phrases of history and action and relationship, of experience, not existence. In other words, the emphasis here that God gives us in this monologue on his name indicates his presence and his involvement with his people, his activity on their behalf. Therefore, this name of God stresses the activity and the presence, not the existence of God. Rashi, the great 11th century rabbi, understood these texts in Exodus 3 and Exodus 6, and he applied the principle to the times of crisis when he said, putting these words, or translating these words from God's mouth, I will be with them in the sorrow, and I will be with them in the subjection and the difficulties they will face with other nations. So says he, and when we read this with other nations, you can say in all kinds of circumstances. Or as one other person put it, the Lord is my shepherd, and therefore I can go with him, even through the valley of the shadow of death. You recognize the Psalm 23, same reality. It was reinforced to Moses just before he went up to the mountain to see the greatness and the glory of God, Exodus 33, and God said, my presence, I will go with you, and I will give you rest. And that is why the concluding words of the concluding book of the Torah proper, Deuteronomy, contain that same promise. When God says, I will never leave you nor forsake you, so be of good courage. Interestingly, the Hebrew letters of this name of God, in a sense, spell out, so to speak, the idea that he will effectuate, he will bring about what he desires. And given the context and the content, it means God is promising that he will bring about liberation, freedom for the Israelites, and ultimately, if understood more fully, freedom and liberation for all humanity. It also has somewhat of a future sense, because God acts in and through all of history. The construction is open-ended, not just for Moses and the people, but for those who've come after them. Most important of all, our sages of old understood this particular name of God as referring to the God who described himself to Moses in Exodus 34 as the God of active love and compassion. Remember, Jenny said God needed to teach Pharaoh a lesson in Egypt as well? Well, this is the lesson that God wanted to teach Pharaoh. Pharaoh, the totalitarian, authoritarian ruler of the most powerful nation at that time. Here's the lesson, that God, Adonai, the unique creator and owner of all creation, because he loves his creation, will act in history and in the world to free all slaves and liberate all who are oppressed. Therefore, this is a name of great hope. Moses, however, would soon witness miracles of a magnitude that dwarfed anything that they had ever seen. Stuff that was never before seen or had never before been seen on earth. As the book of Deuteronomy begins, Moses reminds them on God's behalf, 4:32. In all of history, he says, going back to the very time that God created humans on the earth, search from one end of the heavens to the other to see if you can find anything at all like this. Verse 33. An entire nation heard the voice of God speaking to it from the fire, as you did. And where else will you ever find another example of God's removing a nation from its slavery by sending awesome plagues and mighty miracles? Yes, that is what the Lord your God did for you in Egypt, right before your very eyes. He demonstrated who he was. He did these things so that you might realize that the Lord is God, is Adonai. The God who goes with you wherever you go. No wonder then the prophet, the great prophet of old Isaiah, could in his prophecy concerning the coming of the Messiah say that one of his titles will be Emmanuel, the God who goes with you. And that's why he himself could say, as he left his followers after his resurrection and getting ready to ascend to those heights we found him in, Elohim Asher, he said, as you go out, and wherever you go out, I will be with you always. And this phrase is very interesting, not only to the ends of the earth, but even to the end of time. Names, so many names, but names that should impact our lives in so many ways. He is the God who goes with you wherever you go and through whatever you go through. Respond as you choose in this time of quiet. God who goes with you even to the end of, through the end of time. We anticipate that end of time when God will in fact perfect the world that he's created and the people within it. We anticipate that time as we rise and respond on pages 102 to 107 with the Elena. And we make the choice that our calling is in fact our task. If that is your choice, then you bow. If that isn't your choice, I wouldn't suggest that you bow. Pages 102 to 107.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשינו כגוי הרצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם כלכנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכיננו זו בגבי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אינו, אמת מלכנו, אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשבותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינו. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for he has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him. For he stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled. The Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. V'ne'emar v'hayadonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo
You may be seated. Except for Gary, who is shaking his head. And as I'm looking around, I do not see any first-time visitors. But Gary, that doesn't mean they get extra time during the week.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Hi. Shabbat shalom. Good to be back. Waiting for me here. So, let's start with prayer requests and go to praise reports if there is no one here for the first time.